Today is Human Trafficking Awareness Day, and joining us now to speak about this important topic from Sexual Assault Support Services is Human Trafficking Educator, Paula. Welcome back.
Hi, Gabe.
Thank you for joining us and discussing this important topic. So let's start with it might seem like a basic question, but for those who aren't aware, let's talk a little bit about human trafficking and the definition.
Okay, so human trafficking, by definition, is being coerced into work. So there's two different sectors of it. There's labor, which happens quite often too, and then there is sexual advances or work on that side as well.
All right, and certainly it's something that's becoming more in the forefront, but certainly something that was sort of a hidden issue for many, many years, and something that is very prevalent in our area, even though we didn't realize it for a long time.
It is, and I think that that's the unfortunate thing, is that we are at a really high traffic area. And I think the illusion sometimes about human trafficking is that there's borders being crossed. There actually is never, or very rarely, any borders crossed at all. It tends to happen domestically, it tends to happen right underneath our noses, and that's what human trafficking looks like in this area.
Absolutely, and that's an important distinction to note. It's we often again have those preconception of what things look like, and certainly not always the case. So let's talk to me a little bit about the warning signs. Obviously, it's important to protect our community and especially our women from this. So let's talk a little bit about some prevention.
So I would think some prevention that we can do, again, is just always having open conversations with your children, and we're so afraid to talk about some of these really difficult subjects. So I think it's important to raise those conversations with your children, with your friends, with their friends. Some of the warning signs that I would like you to look for in your kids, or that are important to look for them, is if they suddenly get a new partner who's controlling, doesn't allow them to talk to their friends or have as much time with their friends, if they're being given a lot of gifts, a lot of attention, and again, if you see any clothing that's a little bit more sexual in taste, or big heels and all this kind of thing, it is a big indicator that some human trafficking is going on.
Absolutely, and I know in past conversations we've talked about technology. Obviously, the internet can be a big aspect as well, but certainly, again, some hidden things when in terms of looking at apps that might look innocent at some point, but could absolutely have some nefarious undertones.
Absolutely, I would say be checking, or be open to checking your children's phones and their browsing history. So a lot of these really, really innocent apps, or the perception of these really innocent apps, like TikTok, I'm trying to think, there's quite a few of them that have recently emerged as more high traffic opportunities for trafficking. Facebook too is quite significantly, and they're in court right now, kind of disposing some of those charges. But there is some pretty serious, and if you can't find an app on their phone, I think that that's a really good thing to look for too, is because sometimes these kids can hide them, for they're ashamed, they're embarrassed, whatever it is, yeah.
Absolutely, and you mentioned, of course, looking out for new partners or new people in general in the life. Maybe let's talk a little bit more about that in depth, because we know that a big part of the start of human trafficking is that grooming process, and it doesn't start right away with the full-blown thing. So let's talk a little bit about the grooming process.
So what's really fascinating about the grooming process, and I just finished a really intense course with the ministry on this, is that essentially we were going through all of the warning signs, or predetermined ideas of what a victim would look like, and they look like everybody. There's no significant indicator that somebody from a good family, or somebody from a more difficult background, or not in school or in school, they can all be victimized. What happens is these traffickers, specifically I'm going to speak to the ones that we call Romeos, and those are the ones that act as a boyfriend. They tend to be older, they tend to have multiple cell phones. That's another indicator with your children too, if they have an extra cell phone. What they do is they come in like a boyfriend. They say all the right things, and when you're a young girl, it's really easy to get trapped into, I'm getting gifts, I'm getting attention, he's saying everything that he should be saying, and they just start to create a wedge between this person and their family, their connections, their schools. They keep trying to pull them out.
Absolutely, and again, you mentioned, of course, these Romeos, but again, it's important to always be aware of anything different, because it's not always a guy that's, that obviously starts this as well.
No, and I'd like to indicate that too. So I have a few cases specifically in which it's a female recruiter bringing in these young girls, and they're such like that one's really tough because we tend to trust other women and bring them in and talk to them and bring them close. And so some of these, and again, they tend to be young women too, and they tend to be victims as well. And they're just trying to survive in the way that they know how to survive, and that's by bringing other girls into the organization.
Absolutely, and once you're in this organization, there's lots of obviously ill effects. Maybe talk to me a little bit about how this sort of lifestyle and what happens to the victim.
They easily get isolated. That's kind of the first thing. They're isolated from their friends, their family. They're often used in, there's often pornography taken of them immediately or very quickly in the process. So these traffickers have something to hold over their head. So they say, I'm going to release this, I'm going to share these photos with everybody if you don't listen to me, if you don't continue this process.
Wow. And obviously, we talked a little bit about prevention, but it's never too late to seek help. So let's talk a little bit about, so you're a parent, you find something on your kid's phone, you're concerned that maybe they're sort of being lured into this, or someone's watching and they've already started being lured into this themselves. What can they do?
They can certainly, I would say, talk to your child if you can, if you feel comfortable doing that, and let them know that they have a safe place with you and that you can be open to what they have to tell you, because a lot of this is like such extreme psychological abuse and such coercion that these kids specifically don't feel like they can tell anybody, and they feel quite embarrassed because they've done things that are being used against them to keep them in there. So I would absolutely say ask questions. You can certainly reach out to your police department if you feel like somebody is controlling them, abusing them. Those are really great ways. You can reach out to sexual assault support services and ask. You can always call us and ask, these are some of the things that are going on with my child. Is it an indicator of trafficking or any abuse at all, really?
Absolutely, and you mentioned, of course, the help and services at SASS. Maybe we could finish off with that because, again, it's never too late to get out and to receive help. So talk to me a little bit about the process of sort of getting them out of that lifestyle and helping them deal with the trauma from their abuse.
So it's really hard. There's no way to put it any way. It's really hard, difficult work. A lot of these girls are young, so that gives us an advantage in the sense of they have their whole lives ahead of them and they're more open to finding better opportunities for them. So what you can do with a sexual assault, specifically our center, is that you can just call and ask questions. You don't have to give your name, you don't have to release any information. If you'd like to come for counseling, it's completely confidential. Also, we can do counseling over the phone. If you're not comfortable coming in, you can give a fake name. It really doesn't matter. If you need the help, we are here to help. And it's a completely non-judgmental space. And I think that that's really important because they're carrying a lot of trauma when they come in.
Absolutely, so important to get that message at the end of the day of number one, trying to avoid it, trying to prevent it, but at the end of the day, there's nothing to be ashamed of, to be a victim and to seek out help. So on that note, Paula, as always, we appreciate your time and the work that you do, so thank you for joining us, and again, hopefully the message gets out and we can prevent as much of this as possible.
Thanks, Gabe.